listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Welcome to Joyce Buford's Second Wind. And I am so excited that you're here today. You know, like always, I like to have guests that really will push you, will ask you to dig deep into yourself and grow. Well, today, our guest is exactly that. She's offering you some sad news, but then she's offering to you also the joy, the mission that she found out of a very difficult and complicated situation. Our guest is Cathleen Elle, and she is a #1 international bestselling author, transformational speaker, suicide loss expert, master certified success coach, healer, and podcaster. Cathleen shares powerful healing techniques for parents who have been shattered by suicide to redesign their life and connect to their inner joy and redefine their experience. She has coped with multiple traumas, but the death of her 19-year-old son from suicide was the catalyst that changed her life forever. But today, she assists in changing the trajectory of parents' lives by providing the tools that aid them in moving through the emotions accompanied by complicated loss and challenging experiences. Now, she has told the world, she's been all over the world telling her story and offering healing to many, many people. She's been on all the outlets, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, as well as Modern Mom and others. And now she's on Second Wind. So welcome.
Thank you, Joyce. A lovely introduction.
Oh, thank you. It's great to have you here. I just can't get over the loss of a child. That just doesn't seem to work in my brain. And yet I know friends myself here in Tyler that have lost children, but it's also the compounding, the sudden loss that I think makes it even more brutal and difficult to handle. So tell us about what you feel you could tell us about your loss.
Yeah, losing a child to suddenly and unexpectedly just creates even more complication, especially if it's suicide or drug overdoses, or if you've had an argument with your child and they die in a car accident. So
Yes.
Sudden loss tends to bring up even more complications. And when you're losing a child, all grief brings up other unhealed grief or experiences that you've been through. So if you've been through any kind of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, anything at all, that loss of a job, anything that you haven't really completely moved through and healed through, that is an added layer of grief. So when a child dies or transitions, is how I like to say, when they transition, it shatters all walls that you've created around your heart, and it really leaves your heart in pieces. And so the opportunity in an experience like that is your ability to be able to pick your pieces up one by one and start to create a new puzzle in your heart. So where it's actually a healed heart, instead of creating another layer of grief and blocking your own light from shining out into the world.
Well, you know, I always ask my guests to share their defining moments, and you did tell me your defining moment, but which was the loss of your son. But there was another part to your story that I just found so powerful as you lay on the grave.
Yeah.
Share that, please.
Sure. So when my son took his life in 2010, you mentioned he was 19, his name is Logan. I was completely shattered because I was a public servant. I'd been a legislator. I was a government official. I was a lobbyist and CEO of a large nonprofit. I'd owned
Mm,
businesses. So in the world and in my mind, I was a successful being.
right.
Even though I had experienced a lot of trauma as a child, I was successful, and I'll put that in air quotes, successful.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so when he transitioned, I felt like I really failed. How could I be successful if I couldn't save my own son?
Yeah.
It brings even more complications because when Logan transitioned, he wasn't speaking with me. And I found out a month after the service, thankfully, that he had written a note saying he didn't want me at his service.
Mm,
So there were layers after layers after layers. When I thought I hit my lowest, there was yet another low, and then yet another low. And I found myself lying on his grave 3 or 4 months afterwards. Time doesn't exist when something like that happens. It goes very slowly, or it goes like a speed of a train, lightning.
mhm,
I was lying on his grave and I was begging, pleading, wishing, whoever, whatever took my son, please take me too. I had no other person in my home. My daughter was 1,500 miles away in college.
mhm,
I didn't have a partner that I lived with. And I was just wishing, I wanted to die. I
mhm,
literally wanted to die. And I understood in that moment how my son could take his life. Even though there are many people around me that loved me and wanted to help me, I was isolating myself. And
mhm,
as I was laying there screaming, saying, just please take me, there was a little bit of a calm that came over me. And I heard this voice, or the words came to me: if this happened in your life, then you're meant to do something with it. Now go do it. And it was at that moment that I made the decision that I was going to change how I was going to move through my son's loss.
yeah.
I knew that I had the voice. I knew I had the contacts. I knew I could connect with the media from my past, that how I could help
Mhm,
other parents move through their grief. So I started to advocate for suicide prevention. I started to educate people about the signs of potential suicide and depression and anxiety. And I gave people hope. And that is one thing that I today feel like I can provide for other people as well.
mhm,
We often put ourselves through really unnecessary suffering. The what ifs, if only, the guilt, the
mhm,
shame, the immense shame, especially when it comes to suicide of a child, self blame, blame of others, judgment.
mhm,
You can get stuck in that. I got
yeah.
stuck in it for quite some time. And I made the choice that I didn't want to live like that. That wasn't honoring my life, and it wasn't honoring my son's life. So I
Right.
needed to really start to step into a healing journey that allowed me to move through some of the deepest grief that I didn't even know I was carrying. So not
Mhm,
only my deepest grief about my son, but the deepest grief about sexual, physical, emotional abuse as a child,
mhm,
multiple relationships. So the pattern
right.
continued. So I continued to create these patterns and blocks and limiting beliefs in my body,
Mhm,
mind, and soul. And Logan's transition gave me the power
mhm,
to step into my journey, to live life differently, to connect with him on an energetic level, and to start to shift my awareness and allow me to know there's so much more in life
mhm,
than what we could ever imagine or dream.
mm. It just sharing your background, I mean, I kinda think you were perfect for this journey because you know how it works, and you are a self-motivated person, and when you're carrying a difficult bundle, it
Mhm.
is sometimes that courage that comes from inside you that really makes you powerful
Yeah.
because you've done it, you can do it again. So, yeah, I kind of think you were perfect for this job.
Thank you, Joyce. I kind of
Yeah.
think I am too. I really feel like, I just had an experience recently where I helped a client. She wasn't my client. I was at a workshop, and I was offering an intuitive coaching session
Mhm,
for about 20 people. And I knew I was being guided to shift the intuitive session to a healing session. Like I was just listening to my internal guidance and allowing the flow to happen. And I started to work with this one beautiful woman where she couldn't look at me in my eyes. She couldn't look at anybody in their eyes because she was filled with shame inside. But the shame inside was coming from something she didn't even know. And by the time that I got done working with her, she released some deep-seated abuse from childhood experiences, over and over abuse.
Yeah.
And she was able to stand and with her arms out, with a just huge smile on her face, looking people in the eyes and like, I am love, I am power. And she just like her whole entire, and I've got chills just thinking about it, her entire beingness shifted.
Yes.
So, a 20-minute experience for her changed her life, the trajectory of her life. So where
Yeah.
she could really live in the light that she is. And it was just
Right.
beautiful to see.
Yeah. Well, you do your work through workshops, don't you?
Yes,
And one-on-one coaching as well?
exactly. I do one-on-one. That's the more advanced one-on-one and more in depth. People
Mhm.
who really want to start to move through the challenges that they've experienced. Then I do the one-on-one. I do
Mhm.
group sessions virtually and in person.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a retreat center in Costa Rica that I'm going to be holding retreats at, and I have a virtual program coming up in September. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, tell us about Costa Rica. People always like to go places to do their healing. Somehow it frees the spirit, I think, that they can go to um, a fun place, a beautiful place like Costa Rica. It just kind of works for you there.
Well, it's beautiful. So I'm a
Mhm.
shareholder in this retreat center, and it's a magical place. It's in the blue zone. So there's only 5 blue zones around the world, and it really has an energy of health and growth and transmuting pain and experiences. So
Ah,
energetically, it's right in the middle of the blue zone. So that's a beautiful spot.
yes.
Separate casitas, so you have your own space. But then when you come together, I think the key, or I know the key to retreats is that you have a community of like-minded people who have experienced similar things,
Mhm.
are struggling. And
Mhm.
so as one person is starting to move through their grief, that creates an opening for other people to move through their grief. So there's an energy connection there that
Mhm.
as one person is actually healing, others are going through their own healing journey at the same time.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
creates community, it creates connection. They know they're not alone, you know,
Mhm.
because they feel more normal. They don't
Mhm.
feel like they're this um, alien in society that no one can talk about suicide. No one knows how to respond. I can't say no one. A lot of people don't understand how to talk about suicide or the loss of a child. When
Yeah.
people go back to work,
Yeah.
the experience that they have is people either avoid them
Mhm.
or they say things that are really inappropriate only
Right.
because they don't know what to say, not
That's
because
true.
they want to be hurtful.
Right.
And the third thing, most importantly, just as you started, Joyce, most people can't fathom the loss of their child, say nothing
Mhm.
about the fact that it would be suicide or drug overdose.
Yeah.
They just
Right.
can't even imagine that. So to put themselves in the place of those who have lost children is almost um, in their mind, it's almost there's an inability to be able to do that. They just
Yeah.
can't. So
Yeah.
they ignore it. So then it isolates the individual even more who's left behind.
Mm. Yeah. It's you see this all the time, and where your community really can't support you. And not even the churches do a great job. They throw you into a grief seminar, but they don't somehow connect always
Well,
to the person.
even
Yeah.
spouses or friends, the in my book called Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief, that I talk about a relationship I was in. I was dating someone that was 3 hours away, a 5-year relationship.
Hmm.
He's a wonderful man, a good person, but he wasn't responding to my grief the way I wanted him to, and I wasn't communicating what I expected from him. So it
Oh,
created
sure.
even more of a wedge between us. And
Mm-hmm.
it happens, we met with a, a counselor, or I don't even know who it was, but we met with someone, and a clergyman is who it was,
Mm-hmm.
right after Logan transitioned, and he said that partnership is difficult, and even a partnership that is healthy and really in sync, after losing
Mm-hmm.
a child, there's a 50% chance of separation.
Right.
And then if you have a not so healthy relationship, which most people do, um,
Yeah.
or an inability to communicate clearly and authentically and compassionately, then it rises to almost 90%. It's crazy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on how, if we don't ask for what we need, then you're not going to get it, because everyone grieves differently. And
Mm-hmm.
grief doesn't end in 10 days or 2 weeks, or whatever your bereavement leave is from work. It doesn't end then. It doesn't end in a year, especially with a child. You have to either be willing to step into a grief journey like you do life, and start to move through it, and start to trust that if you let go some of the unnecessary suffering, some of the torture that you put yourself in, if you move through it, you don't let go. If you move through it, you create more space to be able to connect more energetically with your loved one, to feel like you're being cared for, to hear the messages, see the messages, feel the messages. Um, and you realize that each layer that you uncover and open up your own light and allow your own light to shine, then you realize you have much more to live for, and you have an ability to move through it and serve your heart's calling.
Mm-hmm.
It is my belief that everything that happens in our life is an opportunity for us to advance our own soul's journey, and to also serve the heart's calling that we're meant to serve.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm I'm I really agree that with the grieving. Most of us learn about grieving when we're 4, 5, 6, when grandma died.
Right.
And so we think it's over, we just go to the graveyard and then have the ceremony, the
Celebration of
okay.
life, or
Thank you, dear. Thank you. I was trying to find it. But and then we grow up, and that's maybe the only education that we've ever had. So, yes, I believe so strongly in getting that message out there that grief does not heal overnight or suddenly, quickly. And don't let your friends say, well, aren't you over yet? Aren't you healed yet?
Yeah,
Because they mean to say it's time to move on, but
right.
they have no idea what they're asking you to do.
Yeah. And
And
they do
so,
it from their heart you they're
yes,
concerned for you.
yeah,
One of my friends, when Logan transitioned, was really angry at my son for taking
mm,
his life. There's a lot of anger around suicide. They think it's selfish. Some people think it's selfish.
yeah,
Um, and I know for a fact that it was, for my son's experience, it was he couldn't live in the pain he was living in any longer. It was the only option that he could think of in that moment. That's
mhm,
it. I mean, I
mhm,
can't say it any differently than that. Um, Yet my friend was really angry at him, because she's seeing the pain that I was left with. She's seeing the
right,
pain that my daughter was left with.
mhm,
And that was upsetting for her. So
right,
after a while, I had a conversation with her, and she was understanding. But it's really about communication and being willing to accept that everyone is very different. People go through things, and every one of us have different
mhm,
experiences every single day, and it's our experiences that creates our ability and how we move through any kind of grief.
right,
So it's really about holding people in compassion, mostly holding yourself in compassion and love, and
mhm.
forgiving yourself.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that forgiving
Mm.
self. I think it's very hard for us to forgive ourselves. We always think of forgiving the other person, but we don't think of ourselves
Mhm.
and how we can do that. That's
Right.
a decision we do for ourselves. So, how do you impress that on your students? The importance of self forgiveness.
Yeah, it takes time, and it has, the the client has to be willing to step through their pain. It's really about walking through what you're holding guilt about, what you're holding judgment on, what you're feeling that you deserve or don't deserve. It's actually facing your limiting beliefs,
Hmm.
working through the blocks in your mind and the programs that you've been programmed with.
Hmm.
We are programmed from 0 to 5 years old, 8 years old. Depends on who talks, depends on which study you look at. But
Right.
0 to 5 for sure is how we're programmed to respond to the rest of our life. I'll give you an
Mm-hmm.
example. When I was, I think 3 years old, 4 years old, my birth father was an abusive alcoholic, and he came home drunk one night. My mom and he got in this huge verbal fight. Then it was a pushing fight. And then he said, I'm just going to end this. I'm going to say it nicely on, on the radio or on
Okay.
this interview. But he's like, I'm going to end this. So he goes to get the gun. My
Uh,
mom brings me and my sister into the bathroom. She
mm,
puts my older sister with her in the bathtub, and she puts me between a wall and a toilet.
uh,
The door's closed, and he's shooting through the door.
oh
So
my
he shoots
goodness.
at us. And in that moment where she separated me from the two of them, a program was started. I'm not safe. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable because I'm separate from the others.
Oh my
That was a
gosh.
program that a 3-year-old
Yes.
created.
Yes.
I'm not safe because my father's shooting at me. My mother doesn't love me because she doesn't put me with her. I mean, that was a program. Then
Mm-hmm.
we finally get out because they went to reload the gun. Um, they, we hear the police coming because it must be the neighbors called the police.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they come, we go back, which was another program, was like, it's okay to go back to danger. We
Oh.
go back, the police are there, the police say they're going to take him away. And I remember the release in my body is like, okay, we're going to be safe. Then I hear my mom say, oh, no, no, it's okay. Let me just go check and see if he's passed out. If he's passed out, it will be okay. So,
Uh,
yet another program was created. I'm not worthy of being safe.
uh-huh.
And then as my mother walks into who knows if
Mm-hmm.
he's passed out or not, I'm
Right.
fearful that she's going to die too.
Oh
So
yeah.
these programs were created as a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point on, I started to create that same pattern over and over and over again. I got involved in relationships that didn't honor me and embody all that I am, didn't
Mm-hmm.
support me, like I
Mm-hmm.
got in relationships. So I continue to reiterate the unworthiness. So
Right.
I anchor that in. I
Mm-hmm.
did that. I made those choices based on a program that was limited.
Yeah.
And through the healing modality that I use, one of the healing modalities that I use, I went through a reprogramming. A new awareness came. So where I went back to this particular incident when I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
and I could see it through different people's eyes through this process called
Oh.
regenerating images in memory.
Yeah.
Through the process, I was able to see that, oh my gosh, my mom did the best she could because there wasn't enough room for all three of us to be safe in the bathtub. So she put me in the safest place possible.
Right.
Then she
Yeah.
left because it was right. And because at the time, they didn't have the services that we have today. So
Mm.
she was afraid they took him away, they would take us as well. They would take
Oh.
our kids away.
Oh.
So I
Yeah.
had a whole new awareness that she was willing to be beaten and shot at on a day-to-day basis so she could keep her kids.
Oh,
And
wow.
even
Mm-hmm.
further, I went through, so these were multiple times, I was able to experience how my father was, You know, my father came from a family that was even worse than what I experienced. And
Yeah.
so he experienced multiple traumas. So he was doing the best he could with what he knew, with all the love in his heart he had, which at the
Right.
time it was so blocked with so much pain, he couldn't find his own light.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
found so much forgiveness for all of them.
Hmm.
Yet I hadn't found forgiveness for myself until I actually went further into that RIM process, and then the other energy healing that I do. And I also participated in plant medicine with indigenous communities. So plant
Oh,
medicine like ayahuasca, iboga, psilocybin, um, Cambo, Bufo, you know, there are different types of plant medicine that helped me go even deeper into the pain that I was carrying from my ancestors.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And my own experience.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
forgiveness is it can be a long process depending on what your experience is. It can be a short process. Everyone's different.
Right.
It's
Now, how did you do your journey? I mean, you mentioned going the ayahuasca experience. That is journey, but did you do your self-searching or did you work with uh, different people?
Well, I
How did
started right after, about a year after my son transitioned. I went to see a cognitive thought therapist. And before that, I'd seen mediums, I'd gone to energy healers because I was receiving signs from my son. And I
Mhm.
needed desperately, Joyce, I needed at that point, I needed desperately to know that my son knew how much I loved him, how much I was sorry for all that I had done. You know, any parent
Right.
who
Yeah.
has children knows that we're not perfect. We have, you know, we don't have manuals on how you are the best parent possible. There are no manuals for each child because every child's different.
Yeah.
And um, I I really worked. It's been a journey, and I continue.
Yeah.
Just like I said, I just got back from Costa Rica. I just went on a I sat with medicine when I was there myself. So I
Mhm.
know that it's a journey, and the deeper I go with my healing journey, the deeper I can go with the people I work with.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you can only help someone else heal as much as you've healed.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I've actually done the ayahuasca.
You
Now,
have?
yes.
Wow, that's joy.
You're surprised, aren't you?
I
Well,
am. I am.
yeah.
It's wonderful.
I went to, actually, he was in the States, and my niece and her husband were going to do it, and I'd heard about it because I lived in Santa Fe in that area. And so um, I flew out there because I wanted to experience it. Now, the shaman was kinder to me than he was some other people. He didn't give me as much. So I didn't go as deep, and it was a large group. So anyway, but it was an interesting experience, you know.
I've sat with ayahuasca more than 30 times.
Have you really?
Yeah, the my biggest healing journey has been in the last 6 years. The most
Wow.
the deepest healing.
Yeah.
I started with cognitive thought therapy, which was wonderful. I absolutely loved her, and that's where I could start, you know.
Mhm.
And I also knew spiritually that there was more. Like I
Mhm.
knew there was more, and I was searching,
Mhm.
searching, searching. And I 6 years ago, or almost 6 years ago, I left my last husband.
Mhm.
I left because I knew that in order for me to grow the way I wanted to and needed
Mhm.
to help the
Mhm.
people, I needed to step into my own power. And
Right.
so that's when I started on the deeper healing journey. Is when I started RIM, and I, became a master trainer with Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Souls, and that's where I was introduced to ayahuasca. And
Ah.
so RIM, the
Mhm.
regenerating images memory, the modality that I work with, one of the modalities I work with, I became a master healer of that. That's very similar to ayahuasca. It just takes a little longer. And I think
Mhm.
it prepared me to be able to go into ayahuasca and to be
Right.
open to whatever was there. And I have
Right.
purged so much pain from this lifetime, from other lifetimes, from my ancestors. They say that we carry 7 generations back.
Mm,
The energy from our ancestors 7 generations back in ourselves, in our soul. So
right.
you think about the pain of my mother and my father and what they've experienced, and then you go back even further. There's been a lot of challenges
Yeah.
for my
Yeah.
family,
Mm-hmm.
and you also heal 7 generations forward. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that I release from my body, my soul, my thoughts, I'm healing 7 generations forward. My children, my child is not going to carry that, nor is her child, and on
Mm-hmm.
and on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I also started with Jack, and
No.
I did not do the rim when I was there, but I did work with Jack.
Mm,
So we're kind of the same family there,
exactly. I
So
love Jack. That his live program, like he is the kindest, most authentic transformational leader I know.
I know he's touched so many lives.
He
He's
certainly
really,
has.
really has. Okay, now let's share with our listeners today what you have an upcoming. I want you to tell about this healing journey that you're going to have soon.
Yeah, so myself and another master student from Regenerating Images and Memory, Ava, and Dr. Deb, which is the creator of RIM, the three of us will be leading a 6-week virtual retreat. So you can stay right at your home and
Mm,
participate. And it's called Goodbye Hurt and Pain. And so if you are lost, or you're feeling numb, you're feeling like you're not moving forward in your life, you've gone through pain, one sort of pain or another, you've lost a loved one in whatever way, this is an opportunity for you to start moving through your pain. You
mhm,
liberate yourself from the old wounds, your subconscious shifts. You discover how to collaborate with your emotions instead of avoiding them or burying
mhm,
them or masking them.
mhm,
You can rediscover your joy and awe, and you can be more gentle with yourself and learn how to love yourself again.
mhm.
And it's over a
So,
6 period. So,
so to join this workshop, how do they do that?
well, we can post a link
Mhm.
in the radio, the post, and
Uh-huh.
you can also go to riminstitute.com, and it's Goodbye Hurt and Pain. Just search Goodbye
Okay.
Hurt and Pain Retreat, and you can,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Now, let's tell about you have a Facebook group that I bet that's an active group.
It is an active group. It's called Shattered Parents Shattered by Suicide. It's a
Yes.
Facebook private group, so only those who
Uh-huh.
have experienced a loss of a child are
Mhm.
in there. And I weekly go live and do a channeled inspiration and oracle message. So I use different tools so people can see that they can connect with their loved ones through many different modalities. Um,
Mhm.
I provide inspirational quotes. It's a supportive group. I also have a group called Sacred Connections on
Mhm.
Wednesday evenings. We meet once a week.
Oh.
And you can just go to my website at CathleenElle.com and check out Sacred Connections. So where
Mhm.
I help people go through, it's $33 a month. It's a very reasonable amount, but it's more
Mhm.
support for you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, because I think it would be wonderful to work with somebody who has actually lost a
Mhm.
child. And, sometimes going to therapy, you don't work with somebody that has lost a child. They're trying to help you, but they can't, they're missing something really. They don't know about the pain
There's an
as well.
important piece for what I do is that we actually go in and reprogram your cells. So
Oh,
what therapy does is you change your thoughts,
yes.
but you don't reprogram the program that's in there. Uh,
Hmm.
and the program could have been created years ago on how you're responding to life today.
Yeah.
And so um, therapy, it's a good start. If that's where you want to start, then that's wonderful. I would encourage you to do a cognitive thought therapy instead of just talk therapy, because talk therapy only continues to anchor in the old story, because there's more to that old story than what you know.
Yeah.
Awareness is the first step of anything.
One thing that I've liked that you shared with us, and you passed through it in describing your other journey, but that we still have the ability to connect with our loved ones, except it's in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they've gone through the veil. They've gone through the veil, but we can still connect. And I think that's so beautiful thought.
Yeah, Joyce, thank you for bringing that back around, because for me, I really believe that that's one of the things I teach my clients is that, or I help them connect, is that while we have to grieve and move through the grief of their physical presence, we can create a whole new relationship with their energy presence. We are energy. All of us are energy. So once we start to release and move through the blocks that we've created around our own heart, we become more aware and open to the other energies around us.
Yeah. Well, I know there's much more that we could say today, and you've given us such a beautiful entrance into that devastating experience that parents go through. And because the numbers are just shocking that so many of our young people are leaving too early from their own choices or car accidents, as you said, because I did look that up. And the 3 things that most people young people leave, were motor vehicle crashes, firearm accidents, and drug overdose or poisoning.
Well, it's the second leading cause. Suicide is the second leading cause of 13 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad. So sad. So, okay. Now, you are on Twitter. See, I just diverted there. I'm sorry. I should have spent more time with that.
Oh, no.
But
Trust
I'm
me.
moving on. But also, if you'd like to go to Kathleen's website, it is Cathleen, CathleenElle.com. And there, I know you have wonderful things to offer, and you'll learn a lot more about the work that Kathleen is doing. So I encourage my listeners to go there, please. And about do you do a podcast in addition?
I do. It's
What's the name
called
of your podcast?
Beyond Your Best Plan. So there's 5 of us.
Oh, good.
Yeah, 5 women from all walks of life that have a weekly podcast. Again, it's Beyond Your Best Plan. It's fun, it's encouraging, it's informative, and it's real. We talk about our own stories and we offer what we've done to move through it. And so sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's full of laughter, and it's beautiful.
So it's the subject of losing a child.
No, it's
or lost a loved one.
Life.
It's life. Oh,
it's beyond your
okay.
best plan. So, you know, there's a real estate agent, there's a business owner, a business coach, another healer, and a fitness and investment broker. You know, like she's amazing. And then there's me as a healer and coach.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you're a busy lady. I just don't know how you get it all done. But anyway, I'm delighted that you came to Second Wind and that we've been able to share some time together. Yeah. And I just want you to continue to share your message because it's so needed in this world.
Thank you, Joyce. Appreciate being here.
Now, I'm going to talk a minute to my listeners. So I'd like for you to remember, you know, I always like to give you an assignment out there. And this is the simple assignment. Please share this podcast. please, you know somebody that could get so much relief and peace from listening to Kathleen's message today. And perhaps they'll get more involved with her and be able to get even more peace in their life. I think that would be a win-win for everybody. So please think of those people that you can share this with. And that's all I'm asking you to do today. I look forward to next week, knowing that you're out there listening. So thank you for being here today. It's always a pleasure, and I love knowing you're there. Bye for now.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.